Hi, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to break down the recording that we made yesterday, which, if you listened to the recording in the last video, you might have found it difficult to continue even after a few seconds. But I learned loads from it to be able to continue to build a framework to go and collect archival recordings. If I share my screen, I'll show you a few things that immediately came to mind. So we're back to our sound archive recording framework sheet, and I've included a few things in red in addition to what we started with yesterday, which was simply the technical data and some location data. But when I listened to the whole recording, what I realized was that recording was a sound recce. Going there in the first place was a physical recce. So that made me think a first recording is a recce. I just left the equipment there in a drop rig style and walked away. Some people will stay with the recorder using headphones. I don't tend to do that. Although here I can see why you would, because when you listen to the recording, what's the first thing you hear? It's this. And that's the background ambience of a generator that has nothing to do with the train station. And if we continue listening to the recording for another 13 minutes, we hear this. It's just a sharp, high-pitch whistle above the ambience. And we know we're at a train station, but there's nothing there to suggest that it's a steam train, because there are no other sounds of the train moving, which could be because our microphones are too far away. In other words, the placement might be wrong. And another one could be because the area is so large, we may need multiple microphones. And if you heard the whistle, you might want to think, I might need to set a limiter on the recorder. But I actually know what happened here. But if you just listen to the recording, there's no context to what's going on. But when I left the microphones, I went to a different location and I actually filmed just after that whistle, and it was this. Now, the audio here is coming from an action camera, so it may not be the best. And here we can see that the audio from the drop rig is not picking up what's going on in the station. Again, mic placement. Also from the audio coming from the action camera, we can hear the steam engine and its wheels running over the track. We can't hear that from the drop rig, which might mean it's in the wrong place to capture those sounds, or it might mean that we need multiple mics to get different perspectives of the station on that day. It takes another 15 or so minutes of listening before we get to the first really explicit sound that suggests this is a train station, and it provides us with the context of what's going on. And that's in this bit of the audio. So now we know that we're at a train station, because that's what the announcement says. And we can also hear the noise from the steam engine building up ahead of steam. But the announcement says the train will be leaving in 10 minutes. So we have to wait another 10 minutes. But we do get to hear doors closing, people talking, but it's not that good if you listen to the first video. So the next good indicator that it's a train station is when the train actually leaves. So this is what that sounds like. So that provides us with a bit of action. Although I did have to edit there because the gap between the alert alarm on the road where there's a level crossing and the platform whistle was quite long and there was nothing in between. And then when the train started, it blew its whistle and then carried on. In fact, in all of this process that we've been doing, we've been cutting down and editing the master file, which is the archive file of this place in that time. We've added some video footage with extra audio and some stills to give us some kind of a context. But somehow we need to put that context into the overall sound recording sheet that we're building up, the sound archive recording framework, which is what we're creating here on the sheet. So we know we've done a recce, and our sound recording is a recce because we know we can do more. So put that in black. And we've been talking about context. So here I'd imagine we've just given overall description of what we're going to do, the intent of the recording. So I think we need an extra bit here. So I'll come after there, intent, and then the context. I think we could build up with main features, timestamps, and keywords. So if anybody's looking or listening to the file, they'd know where to go. Obviously it depends on what they're listening for, because oddly enough, when I was reading Murray Schafer's book, The Soundscape, where he describes sound, his interest was in noise pollution. So rather than just a train station here, we may be interested in some of the other sounds, like the generators that have nothing to do with the station. But if you listen to the whole file at the station, those generators are running. But I suppose that's what an archive file is all about. It's not necessarily about the train station and the steam trains. It's about that place in that time. And researchers could derive other forms of information from your recordings, not the stated obvious things. So I'd imagine we should put everything into the context. Maybe have an overall context, and a context that's edited down into our intended recording, which in this case was recording the first steam train of the day at that station. But there is a bit more to this story, and I will cover that in the next video. And it's about editing down. So we can get rid of some things out of this. We'd still have the archive file, but we're building up a different story. And because I had the action camera, I went off and I filmed other aspects of the train's journey. Because from there, that's just where it gets the carriage. Then it goes to the main station. Then it comes back through this station and then heads off to the end of the lake by Llanberis. So we'll put that together next time. I've learnt so much by just creating this video and having to think about what this sound recording is all about, what an archive file is, what the intended use is, and what information we could get out of it to tell a story. So we'll do the editing next time. I'd like to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.